Welcome to One on One on God 101. Our guest today is a man known by many names. He was born Ron Artest in Queens, New York. Later, he changed his name to Metta World Peace. And then in 2020, he changed his name to Metta Sandiford Artest. Metta, welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You also have many accolades attached to your name. Let me just highlight a few. In 2010, you won the NBA championship with the LA Lakers. And 8 years later, you temporarily moved into the Big Brother house as a celebrity house guest. You didn't win that, but you did put a lot of smiles on a lot of faces. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And most recently, you spent 2 weeks of your life in the jungles of Panama to compete, to take part in CBS's latest reality show called Beyond the Edge. You were one of 9 celebrity contestants. We're going to talk all about that in just a moment. But first, God. I always start out by asking guests, did you grow up with faith in your life?
Well, I mean, we grew up with a lot of different beliefs and faiths and religions. Being from Queens, New York City, my grandma was Jehovah Witness, and which she's probably one of my favorite people in my life. And then I grew up going to the Baptist church. I also went to a Catholic university, Catholic university and a Catholic high school. So LaSalle Academy. I went there for 4 years. I went to the Church of Latter Day Saints with my friends a couple of times also. And my brother, he's a Muslim, and then, but and then, so it was like a lot of different religions and faiths. I later started to take on Buddhism at about 2011, 2012. I started to really, take that as part of my faith more and more and more. But as a foundation and early, I grew up Baptist in a Baptist church.
So you believe in God, yes?
Yeah, I believe in I believe in God. I believe in higher beings, and there's so many. When we're growing up, you think religions, and there were so many different religions, right? So then you didn't really understand the different, I guess gods or higher powers. So I'm very open to other people's religions. I believe in God. I believe in higher power, and so a little bit of that, and I respect other people's religions also. Because everybody got to have their faith. So I'm kind of like I'm kind of like definitely have my core, kind of what I believe in, and then also very receptive.
May I ask you today in 2022, what is your core? How do you describe it?
I think my core today in 2022 is probably more trying to control self. I think in this lifestyle that we live in, you don't sometimes you can lose control of self. And I think over the last like 10, 15 years, it's something I've really been wanting to address. And I think everything from breathing exercises, from meditation, from mainly those two things right there is something that, I found really useful when I'm trying to make decisions. Sometimes when I would be in a therapy session, they would say, take 5, or whether it's 5 seconds or 5 minutes or 5 hours, stuff like that. So I really, I really, it really helped me out a lot tremendously, just to kind of gain self, controls, different things like that.
Right before we started recording, you and I were talking about how we kind of went to rival Catholic high schools in Queens.
Yeah.
Um, your high school, LaSalle, beat my high school, St. Francis Prep, in the basketball championship, the CHSSA. So clearly, I have a little bit of a Catholic school background, but since you spoke about Buddhism speaking to you, my maternal grandmother was a practicing Buddhist. So I too have many different, I've been exposed to many different faiths. Um, and I don't know about you, but the last 2 years during this pandemic, my faith got deepened and I became a Jesus person. Did your faith did your faith get deepened in these last 2 years where many of us had many months of just kind of sitting at home having time
Hmm.
to meditate or think about what is my purpose here?
That's very true. So I think I would say yes, and more just what is my purpose? I think everybody asked that. That's kind of the first time I heard that, but plenty of times I was asking myself, when is this going to be over? And different things like that. And I think it gave you time to think more, to be with family more, also. And I think from that perspective, I did have a lot of time to to self and to meditate, and to further kind of reach newer heights. Because when you first start meditating, or when you first start breathing, if you never ever meditated or never was into Buddhism or therapy, it's new. But then after you pass the classes, or the sessions, what's next? Do you stop or do you keep going? And I like to keep going and try to reach for higher heights, more heights, and what else is out there beyond just anger management or beyond just basic therapy? Is there anything else that I can attach myself to? And I'm always trying to do that. Now I do it through stargazing. Sometimes I like the moon gaze. Sometimes just to kind of attach myself, just ask myself questions and different things like that. So that's probably how I got more. That's how I deepened my faith, probably.
You just gave two great tips, I think, not only to me, but many people probably listening right now. I've noticed in society, a lot of people like the latest thing, the latest trend. And, Buddhism became very popular the last couple of decades, 10, 20 years. People use the word meditate a lot. Everyone wants peace, right? Peace of mind. And I only learned recently, I feel like people use the word meditate a lot, but I find it, for me, interchangeable with the word prayer. Like, I pray. That's my
Mhm.
meditation. Do you find the two words interchangeable? Praying and meditating. Is it one and the same for you?
I think that's a good question. And I really do think it is. I don't see a issue with praying and meditating, or praying as a form of meditation. I don't see an issue with that. I mean, it's actually interesting you say that, because I have been doing that lately. Um, just our history is a little bit different, right? Just being African American here in America, a lot of religion was forced on us. So, when you ask those questions, it's always like questions you got to ask. So as you learn about that type of stuff, I was always looking for other uh, faiths and religions, for quite some time. So it was a point in time where I was backtracking to Israel. So I studied, Judaism, learning about Jewish people. Then I was studying Egyptian people. I was actually studying a lot of different religions, because I was always trying to figure out, because there's not a lot of, you can't really find like where you're from, especially as African American. Most African Americans are like, who are you? Where are you from? What country are you from? We just don't know. Right. So I tried to do a lot of different tracking back to where the slaves was, shipped, to the Americas, to the different islands, and then back and track to Egypt, Israel, and different things like that, and just really embracing all the religions out there. I'm a big fan of the Baptist church. I grew up in the Baptist church. A lot of singing in the Baptist church. And I also was a Catholic guy for 4 years, actually 8 years of my life. Actually, longer than that, because the CYO, right before high school, I played in the Catholic leagues. So I have a big, background with the Catholic Church also.
Wow. I love how your mind and heart are both so open to exploring and seeking, that wanting to know more. When you did try to delve into, who am I, your heritage, did you find any answers, or did anything
Yeah,
resonate with you? Maybe it's not evidence, but it's something that spoke to your heart.
absolutely. It was my greatest like form of therapy. Just being able to, when I first went backtrack to Israel, where the Holy Land, and just doing research, and I'm asking myself, why can't am I maybe I'm Jewish, maybe I'm Egyptian, maybe I do practice Buddhism, maybe my family did practice Buddhism, or a long time ago, you know. So I gave time to each religion and just like kind of put some pieces together because I think a lot of frustration not knowing, not knowing where your next meal is going to come, not knowing who your parents are sometimes. Not in my situation, but some people don't. It's just not knowing. So I think when you know, it takes a huge burden off your shoulders. Because sometimes, in my situation, for example, I have documented anger management issues, when I was playing in my career. And is that a good feeling? Do you want to keep having these issues or not? So how do you address it? And that was a journey I went on. And then it led me to studying religions, which complemented, my breathing exercises, my therapy. It also complemented, mainly the therapy sessions with breathing and everything. So it starts to all come together and you have more knowledge about yourself.
Where does now this is a powerful word I'm going to say and world, and this is a word that can clear a room. Jesus. Who do you think Jesus is? What is the name Jesus mean to Metta?
What it means to me is, when you look at when I was talking about earlier about the forced religion on Africans that came from Africa, that gives, Jesus not a great name because you're forcing someone to learn about a religion and maybe they don't want to, or you're saying, if you don't learn this, you're going to be punished. That's not love, right? So I take that part out of it when I'm thinking about like belief or faith and Jesus, because I don't think like it. I don't think that word deserves a bad name. But for us, especially if you do history like I do, you research a little bit. So for me, I remove that part of it when I'm kind of in deep thought, because it always gets in the way. So I remove that part of it and then focus on the purity of someone who put us all here together. Someone that put us here together, different features, looks, faces, different parts of the world. I mean, I think that's beautiful. I think like people say we're all equal, but that's not true. We're all different. And I think that's the beautiful thing about being a human being. Like we're so different, which is people need to embrace that. Instead of you trying to be equal, we're equal to this person, we're equal to that person. No, we're not. We're so different and so powerful, each one of us, right? And I think, that's where you can really start to connect with the higher power, because I do believe it is a higher power, that put us here for a purpose. And some people lose faith in that. Some people lose belief and faith and just don't, believe in the higher powers and different things like that, for whatever reasons. And I grew up, a long time in the Baptist church, so it's not something that I'm willing to part with, totally.
Is it possible man messed it up? Man tried to tell everyone who Jesus is and messed it up?
Obviously I wasn't living back then, but I think like,
Oh, no, I
I
mean
think,
today, like, I don't understand when people, try and weaponize, Jesus,
right.
but then judge others and don't love one another, but then hide behind saying that they are a Christian or they love Jesus, but they don't love a certain type of people because they don't look like me.
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand. That's when I mean, like, do you think man messed it up?
Well,
And
I think so. I think so. I think people do hide behind religion as a form of, you know, it's like a bridge in between, your agenda sometimes. And I don't think like that. I see through it. When as a kid, yeah, you're like, oh wow. It was a point in time where I was afraid of other religions. Actually, I was only Baptist, and I was actually afraid to talk to someone who was another religion. That's how it was when I was younger. And I'm like, as I got older, I said, like, why am I afraid to talk to other religions, people that's other religions? And then that's why maybe I had to do a lot of research, because I don't want to necessarily be those other religions, but I at least want to have coffee with you. Maybe I want to have coffee with you. Maybe I want to go to the movies or play tag, or I don't know, maybe do a Zoom session. You know, it's something, right? So I think we need to, everybody deserves, their faith and their beliefs. You know what I'm saying? And I
Amen.
don't think we should be forcing people each, either way, or like you said, weaponizing it.
Amen. I think if we were to all try and love one another, which is what it says in the Bible, love God first, and right behind that, love one another, we would have a lot less anger right now, and more hope and more peace in this world. Um, all right. Can we talk about Panama? Can we talk about Beyond the Edge?
I love talking about what you're talking about, but we can. I'm
I
not
do too.
next
I
time.
Yeah, no, I could trust me. I could talk about this for hours.
I thought it was really interesting conversation. I really appreciate the conversation because these conversations are not had all the time. We talk about we're marketing, we're marketing and doing all the stuff, and we're doing that to our children, and then our children are so sped up they don't have a chance to just relax. We grew up under the faiths and beliefs, and now our children are growing up under other things. And sometimes they need to hear this, see it. We need to be refreshed, also. And different things like that. So I really appreciate your show. If this is your show,
It-
is this your new show?
It's my new show that, Meta, you might help me get the show on another platform, a bigger platform. If not, God's will is my will. That's what I pray for all the time. You know, Even if we reach just 10,000 people as opposed to millions when you were on Celebrity Big Brother, that's 10,000
Yeah, I
hearts.
agree. I agree, and I definitely appreciate the conversation. Because it's really important to have. It's really important to just talk about it and be open and not be afraid. And I told you I told you stuff that you never would have known if you didn't ask me those questions. I told you, what the fear that I had behind different things, and what bothers me about religion, and then how we perceive it. And there's a lot of other people that feel like that, that I know personally, that from not knowing where you're from, which is really, just imagine living 40 years not knowing you're from. Even whites in America or Caucasians in America, they know where they're from. Asians in America, they know where they're from. Right? Indians in America, they know where they're from. So that's a whole nother piece for us, to deal with, and then on top of growing up a Baptist, growing up loving Jesus, and then as you get older and you start questioning these things, you got to question 20 years or 15, your first 15 years of your life, that you thought you were doing the right thing, or you thought that this was out of the pureness of people's heart. And now you're questioning, like you said, do you question Jesus? That was that was really powerful. That was really powerful. I didn't know what you was gonna say, but that was really powerful. But that's a great question. So I just say that, to say, I really appreciate the conversation.
Oh, I so appreciate your honesty and openness to talk about this because I think the reason people don't talk about it, I think there are a few reasons. I think number one, people aren't given the space to talk about it. They're never asked,
Mm.
right? Like you said, they're always marketing. They're like promoting this, and promoting that. And there's always like a business agenda, right? Or any agenda. And for whatever reason, I know in my career, anytime I try and like have a form of prayer or I mention God or, I mention Jesus, people are like, what'd she say? Like, oh, do we call HR? I'm like, you can call HR. I wish, it's, and I just, I pray for everyone to understand one another's hearts. And I pray for my own heart because sometimes I'll be the first to admit, you and I are from Queens. My heart wasn't always so light as I'm describing right now. There was some darkness there growing up, a child of immigrant in Queens, where I had to deal with my own hardships and not looking
Yeah,
like
of course. Yeah, of
so
course.
that can harden your heart. And I'm just like, please, God, keep my heart pure and free from darkness.
So true. So true. I'm with you.
I
This
love
is
that.
good.
Um, but we do have to talk about Panama, and we do have to talk about the show because, CBS publicity granted this interview, and this is the business agenda. But I am curious, and I'll always put, for me, my agenda is always a Jesus agenda. So I will put the God lens on it. Um, did going to Panama for 2 weeks test your faith?
Panama was tough. Okay. Panama was tough. Oh wow. It was just I wasn't gonna go. I do like to be on TV, so I'm gonna say that I do love entertainment. I do love being on TV. Um, but I'm always on other people's shows, right? Other people's productions and different things like that. So this show, very similar to Big Brother. I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. My family said do it. The production called. They made me feel uncomfortable. So I get to Panama. First thing we do, we land. We get to our first hotel before the jungle, and like our backyard was like the ocean. Panama is it's like a canal. So there's water everywhere. So I'm like, I was sitting out there with Jeff Ross, Jeff Ross, and we were thinking the same thing. We were like, hey, are you going to be able to deal with this? And I was like, I don't know. He said, I don't know. Well, anyway, the next day, Jeff Ross didn't show up. He left. I continued to go with the
The
group.
comedian, the
The
writer, Jeff?
comedian, yeah. Jeff didn't even make it to the jungle. So we go to the jungle and beautiful, just nature and we get to our huts. And meanwhile, the hut is 4 open sides. So we have to get leaves, cover our top, and now you have 3 open sides. Now, meanwhile, they removed 16 boa constrictor snakes and a bunch of caiman alligators, right? And we stayed right next to a swamp. That's where our huts were. Maybe 30 feet from a swamp, right? So now we're having a good time. We got the fire. Then everybody said, hey, it's getting dark. We got to make these huts. So everybody starts scrambling. We make the huts, and then we living off, for the most part, during the day, bananas and coconut water. Sometimes you went fishing and you got some other stuff out the water, finding fish, and making it happen. So then when it gets dark, pitch black, right? And I'm just fast forwarding a little bit, and that was really scary. The monkeys was not happy. You can tell they weren't happy we were in their place. Loud, maybe 4 times the growl of a pit bull dog. Loud sounds, super intimidating. And you just can't see nothing. Right. So I couldn't sleep. And then on top of that, it started raining. On top of that, it started raining. And I'm thinking, like, we're good. And that rain was seeping through my hut. I was freezing, and there was nothing you can do, nowhere you can go. It was too dark. We couldn't even fix the leaves. It was just it was so much rain. You just had to find a spot where you could avoid the rain. And it was so cold. And we was there maybe in the rain, maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, just hard, thundering rain. But me, I'm also a fan of the water. So I love water. I'm a Scorpio and I'm a water sign. So I love water. But I remember like the first time when it started pouring, I just started laughing really loud. Everybody heard me laugh. And I was like laughing. I'm like, this is so funny. Like, we're not getting out of this. And on top of that, I love water. But it was still very uncomfortable. And when the sun comes up, I mean, we're about 100 yards from the beach in the jungle. You can eat some of the fruit. You got to watch what you eat, but you can eat some of the fruit and the plants. Some beautiful spiders, but poisonous. Mud. We was going through mud, but we went through so much mud. I took off my shoe when I got back to my hut, and my nails were like soft. I can peel my nails off. Like, and I mean, it was pure like mud. Like, it was the greatest mud I've ever had. I mean, my skin was just coming off. So that's like, it was like gifts, and then not so many gifts. It's so much. And I literally can go on for maybe 5 hours. I got so many stories.
Metta, you're testing my faith listening to what you went through. I mean, after that, you're probably running back to the Big Brother house. Not so rough in the Big Brother.
Oh, yeah.
Life is
The
all
Big Brother
relative.
house is probably more mentally draining versus this was mentally, it was tiring. Like it was different. It was mentally fatiguing. Everybody was fighting for the same cause, but it was really hard. It was really hard.
Let's talk about the cause you are fighting for, because each celebrity gets to pick their own charity. Your charity is Artest University,
Yes.
obviously a charity you started. Tell me about it. What does it do?
Well, when we first started Artest University, it first started as Excel University. That was 2007. Because when I first got to the NBA, I was giving scholarships to kids to go to high school, Bishop Lachlan, LaSalle Academy. And I did it because when I was young, somebody gave me a scholarship. So when I made it to the NBA, I was just coming out paying cash. And this is before I knew what a 501c3 was. So then when I started to do it in 2007 or five, something like that, I created Excel University and started giving these scholarships to kids through the foundation. And then I got to maybe 2012, renamed. Then we renamed it Gradello University, and then like 2016 or 18, we renamed it Artest University. But everybody know my cause is mental health. I raffled off my championship ring. We raised $600,000, probably one of the most ever. But we gave all that money away to mental health institutions, and now we try to do the same thing, but I'm focusing more on parenting and partnerships, teaching our youth on the importance on being a good parent and the importance on being a good partner, because that was stuff that I didn't see. And I saw how it affected me in a negative way, not knowing how to raise a family, not knowing how to be, a good partner, to your significant other. Those are values and morals that I see some people have. And then I see some people that don't have it. And if you don't have it, you risk losing your family. You risk being stressed going to work. You risk your children not knowing who you are. And it might be a little too early, but they're teaching so many other bad things early. With the music that I've learned since I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, things that I thought was cool. How I was doing music. It was a point in time in my life where I was talking about women in a way where I wasn't taking women in consideration, or even just people in general. And I think from that perspective, I think we can start teaching our youth, the other side of the things that they're learning, on radio or whatever the case may be, and it was something that I never had. And, I feel like it's worth trying, to fight for that cause, so that's what Artest University, that's our mission statement, trying to show the youth the importance on parenting and partnership.
Beautiful. What I want to share with you is, as you were talking about, like, you were doing music, and it, wasn't, it wasn't,
Degrading a little bit.
yeah, it, so you might find this a little bit surprising. But I belong to a Baptist church, and my friend, who is the pastor, he is someone who used to be my favorite cameraman in Dayton, Ohio, when I was just starting as a news reporter. Did not know God back then, got to know God, now pastors a Baptist church in Boston. He said to me, as I'm trying to raise a 12-year-old boy, he said, you have to watch what your child is exposed to, what music he listens to, what he's watching, because, junk in, junk out. It's not like you have to only watch, like, super, like, it's just, there has to be, it can't outweigh, the good that is he's consuming, whether through his ears or his eyes. And I've seen the difference. So I'm glad you said that, Metta,
Yeah.
Um, or my pastor says, Julie, you know the answer. When you have a question like, should I or shouldn't I? He goes, because, I used to love to gossip. Oh my gosh, I used to love to gossip. And he said, Julie, does it glorify God? And I said, no, it doesn't. And then he was like, well, then here's your answer. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I need to stop gossiping. I used to work on a gossip talk show for 8 years. I used to get paid to do that.
Mhm.
Anyhow, I think you are a child of God. I do not know if you would describe yourself that way, but as I'm hearing you speak from your heart to me, you to me, you are a living Bible because you are your heart is open, and your heart is open to learning from all different types of cultures and people. So I just so appreciate it, Meta. I really do.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. I'll accept it. You know, like I said, I grew up in Baptist church and I'm very open. I do pray and I do meditate. You know, I changed my name to Metta. That's a Buddhist name, right? You know, which I'm really happy about. But yeah, you know, like I said, I really appreciate, you know, your show and I really appreciate, you know, the conversation. I thought it was amazing.
Thank you so much for your time, and keep shining your light, Meta. Just keep on keeping on. Really, truly, I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.